Is the Black Joy movement enough to propel Kamala Harris to the presidency? And even more importantly, is it a strategy that we should use for Black empowerment in 2025 and 2026? Stay tuned right after this. Hey guys, what's up? My name is Chloe Corbett, aka the Duchess of Justice. I am one half of the Defiant Lawyers, where we provide legal analysis of trending politics, policies, personalities, and pop culture to empower each and every one of you all to defy this unjust legal system and nullify systemic racism. So I came across this really interesting CNN article entitled Kamala Harris is tapping into the Black Joy movement. And it goes into detail about why some people feel that Kamala isn't just campaigning on joy, quote unquote, but instead she is also tapping into something called the Black Joy movement. According to CNN, this movement is led by Black artists, authors, activists, and others. The movement declares that Black people's humanity will not be defined by trauma or oppression, but by something else, a joy that no white man can steal. So the question is, has Kamala tapped into this movement, this Black Joy movement? And a question that I wanted you all to consider, is it enough for us to put Black issues, Black empowerment, to combat systemic racism, education, inequity, etc.? Is the Black Joy movement enough? So I've done a little bit of a deep dive into this movement. I had never really heard of this movement before, but apparently it has been percolating in our society for a while. And I wanted to go into some detail about it. So according to the National Museum of African American History and Culture, a museum out of DC that I highly, highly, highly recommend that you all go check out. Every time I go to DC, I make it my mission to stop by the National Museum of African American History and Culture. I can literally spend hours upon hours in that museum. It is one of the best laid museums that I've ever gone to. There are several floors. It is absolutely beautiful. Just an amazing museum. And if you do go, I recommend that you start with the very bottom floor and then work your way up. Absolutely amazing. Highly recommend. But the museum put out an article entitled Black Joy, Resistance, Resilience, and Reclamation by Elaine Nichols. And it starts off by saying, at the heart of the Black Joy movement is what many scholars, journalists, authors, and others are describing as resistance, resilience, and reclamation of Black humanity. Life brings everyone challenges, disappointments, losses, and unexpected difficulties, regardless of race. But when race is added to the mix, the situation is compounded exponentially. When people live in a world that devalues them because they are Black or brown, as well as dismisses their contributions to the larger society, Black Joy is and has been an effective tool that has allowed individuals and groups to shift the impact of negative narratives and events in their favor. In those instances, Black Joy is and has been an essential act of survival and development. Black Joy affirms that I am not a victim. I am an agent of change. It rejects the idea that violence, injustice, discrimination, prejudice, and dominance over others are normal and acceptable actions. So, there's been a lot of talk since Kamala has ran in this race, how her campaign has embraced the joy of Kamala and the joy of change and why America needs joy versus the dystopian picture that Donald Trump and MAGA are trying to paint America as. And so her campaign has leaned very heavily into this joy movement, especially because of the fact that conservatives make fun of Kamala's laugh, the fact that she laughs too much, the fact that she's not serious, she's a woman, etc. So I think that on a political level, we're going to talk about on a political level and then on a Black empowerment and gender level. So on a political level, I think that it is a good strategy to lean into her laugh, to lean into the fact that her campaign is bringing enthusiasm back to the Democratic base based on polling, based on the rallies that she and Tim Walz have had together, that There were 4 days at the DNC of people being excited, enthused. There was a party atmosphere. People are excited and hopeful about the future. I think that turning that around and using that to her advantage is smart politically, as a political strategy in order to get her into office. A lot of the choices that we make with these presidential elections, especially, is one of hope and change versus one of going back to the way America used to be. That is essentially the decision that the Harris campaign is trying to paint a picture for voters to have to decide between. Do you want to go back with Trump, former President Trump, 34 convicted felon Trump, or do you want to go with Harris, who is, bringing this message of change, of hope, of joy? Essentially, those are the two decisions that her campaign seemingly wants voters to make a decision between. And they're banking on that voters will go out and want to vote for the ticket of hope and change and all of that. I think that is politically a smart decision. I think trying to show that contrast between her and Trump is important. And it really harkens back. She's taken a political page from the Obama campaign in 2008, where, as we all know, he was all about hope and about change and about unity. There's no red America. There's no blue America. There's a United States of America. And that really developed my political journey as well, because I voted for the first time at 18 for President Obama. And I remember my senior year, in the summer before my senior year, literally spending hours consuming media about the Obama campaign, watching CNN, reading articles, reading books about Obama. I read his book, Dreams from My Father, at that time, and that really got me involved in politics and wanting to speak out for these issues. And I was swept up in this hope candidate, this unknown person at the time, Barack Hussein Obama, who became the 44th president of the United States. So I was one of those people that was affected by it as well, and it really got me inspired as well. So I think that Harris's campaign is trying to harken back to that in order to show we don't want to go back, y'all. It's time to move forward. In fact, that has been her one of her campaign slogans: forward and freedom. Politically, I think that's good. I think that leaning into her laugh is good politically, and not allowing the conservatives to paint that as a negative and paint her as this unserious person, I think is good. But I don't think that the Black Joy movement is enough in order to counteract Project 2025 and as a long-term strategy for Black empowerment. I think that we must go beyond just this Black Joy movement, and we must have strategic implementation of our agenda, both on the local, the state, and the federal level, both with the legislatures around this country, the judiciary, school districts, with the organizations that we bring to the forefront. And speaking of that, my dad and I, through the Lazarus Law and Justice Project, in conjunction with the Defiant Lawyers, we have put out Advance 2026. If you have not seen that video, go down. We'll have a link in the description box where my dad goes into more detail about Advance 2026. But what it is a comprehensive Black empowerment agenda for racial justice, economic empowerment, and educational equity for African American families. This is the agenda that we have put out through our nonprofit, the Lazarus Law and Justice Project, for strategic implementation of Black empowerment for the 2026 midterms. We have vigorously endorsed Kamala Harris for president, but it doesn't stop there. If she wins the presidency, we are going to push her to make sure that she embraces a comprehensive, in-depth Black empowerment agenda that will help advance the Black community. So while I think that, tapping into this Black Joy movement politically is great in order to try to get her into the presidency, we need more than that if and when she becomes president. And, I think that strategically, in terms of beyond just politics, in terms of Black America in general, we know that there's a lot of trauma that the Black community has from slavery, from Jim Crow, from police brutality, from not having access to the economic advances that other races have had, especially white Americans. There's trauma that comes with that. And people react to trauma in different ways. For those of you all who do not know, I majored in psychology in undergrad. And before I decided to become an attorney, I wanted to be a psychologist because it was fascinating for me to study human behavior. So I took courses studying human behavior, studying the brain. I took neuroscience courses, and I got my Bachelor of Science in psychology with a minor in biology. And one of the things that we studied in detail is how humans respond to trauma. And there's different ways that we respond. Some people avoid, they have an avoidant personality. You know, they avoid getting into potential situations that can trigger the traumatic experience they had. Some people have unhealthy coping mechanisms. They turn to ways to get pleasure, to take their mind off of it. You know, a lot of times there's been that caricature of Black people of sort of the Jimbo character, always grinning, always laughing, you know, dancing. We're in chains, we're enslaved, but we're dancing and all of that. And I believe that goes back to the way that African Americans have responded to trauma, and the various ways that different types of people respond to trauma based on their genetics, based on their family, based on the culmination of experiences that they have been through in their past life. I don't think that just Black joy is enough. We must be strategic when speaking out against the systemic and structural injustices and racism that still occurs in America today. So I think actually they should go hand in hand. We should know that, you know, we are worthy. And as Black people, we have a culture and we have a joy that comes from overcoming everything that we have overcome in this country. But we must be strategic in combating the 40, 50, 60-year plan that conservatives and white supremacists have been plotting. And a lot of it has come into fruition. They targeted affirmative action. The Supreme Court ruled against it, brought down affirmative action. They targeted, you know, Black organizations that provide Black funding for Black businesses, and a federal court ruled against the Fearless Fund. They're targeting school districts. They're targeting other organizations. They're targeting DEI, diversity, equity, and inclusion. And what are we going to do? That is the question. And that goes beyond just this Black joy movement that has been growing steam. We must be empowered. We must have an agenda, and we must have strategy. So I encourage you all to join us in our Black Empowerment Agenda Advance 2026, which is an agenda that we have put out for Black empowerment to counteract Project 2025. And we named it 2026 because we are going to be pushing, lobbying, and vocalizing on the various changes, legislation, and judicial changes that we want to occur by 2026, by the 2026 midterms. So I encourage you all to check the description below for Advance 2026, our Black Empowerment Agenda. And just know that, yes, we can have Black joy because we have overcome so much, but the fight is not done, and we must continue with strategy. So with that, thank you all so much for joining me in this video. If you are a subscriber, thank you so much for subscribing. You all have no idea how much it means to us for us to continue to build this community, this family, one that I think is the best on the internet. If you are not a subscriber, I encourage you to subscribe or to join the channel, to join us in our fight against systemic racism and a unjust legal system. Let me know down below what you all think about this Black Joy movement. Do you think it's enough? One, to get Kamala to the White House, and two, is it enough for us to put in place our agenda to continue to advance the Black community? With that, I'm going to get out of here. Thank you so much for joining, and I'll see you in the next video. Peace.